Dr. Carol Talbot, the creator and founder of the Possibility Hub, taking you beyond the boundaries of who you believe yourself to be and opening to new possibilities. My guest in this episode is colour specialist and global colour ambassador Mark Wentworth, who's been studying and working with the transformational power of colour for over 30 years. He's the creator and developer of Colour PsychoDynamics. In this conversation, we'll be talking about Mark's latest book, I Am Me, as well as the colour gold, which is the colour for 2025, and what that means for you. Because colour, in whatever shape or form, always has a story to tell. Hello again, Mark. Welcome back to the Possibility Hub. And I'm excited about this conversation for two reasons. One, you have a new book. And two, we're also going to talk about a colour that you've got in your background there, which is gold. And it's also your own, I believe it's your own personal colour as well.
It is indeed, yeah.
And it'll be the colour and the sparkle for 2025. But let's first start with that new book, because it's a collaboration book. It's titled I Am Me. Very bold title for a book. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. And it's always great to be back here because I love listening to everything that you have to say and share. So it's always good to be back here to share more. The book it was an interesting collaboration, and Amanda, who we kind of put it together together, and she was attending a workshop last year in 2023, actually, in Adelaide. Never been to one of my workshops before. And during the day, it was only a day workshop all about life path colors. And during that day, she saw the title of the book, the cover of the book, and the content of how it should be. And then she shared that with me over the sort of coming days. And she said, shall we do it? So it was an invitation for her. And for me, kind of probably like you, these are signs to me, these are the signs from the universe, because it was so clear. And the title, the cover, exactly how the cover looks, everything is not changed at all. So she provided the container and I kind of filled in the details, which is a real gift for me, because for so long I've been saying, I really need to do another book. I really need to do another book. And clearly the universe was listening, because it says, let's just put this person in a workshop in Adelaide on a one-day workshop, and we'll give her the vision of how it should be.
Which she then translated to you.
Yeah.
And talking about translation, your last book, Add a Little Colour to Your Life. How many languages is it translated into now?
I think 8, but I know next year it's coming out in another 2 languages. It's coming out. It's currently in translation into Latvian and Italian.
Oh, wow.
And it's I'm also updating it a little bit because next year it'll be 27 years since it's been in print. So we were talking about a gold year. So when you add the numbers of 2 and 7 together, you get 9. So next year it's my book's kind of golden edition. So I'm updating it to a gold and calling it the gold edition.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that fits so nicely, doesn't it, when it's sort of, 27 years. So
Yes.
Definitely time for a new book. So, of course, we're talking about, colours as a life path and the sort of what messages colours have for you, what you resonate with, and also what you do not resonate with is maybe an indication that something is missing in your life in terms of colour. So tell us more about what we can expect to find in that new book. Does it build on the first one? Does it help people understand colour more in their life and as a life path?
So I am me because I love that because the title is so strong,
It is.
because um, nowadays we're kind of that's so much in a way lost. We were told you can be anything you want to be, but sometimes the question is, are you being you?
Exactly. It's are we conforming to what society
Yeah.
has conditioned or programmed us to believe? And also, it's funny you say that because I even remember back as a child, at times of Christmas or birthdays, there was a run on the same presents. All the parents wanted the same presents for the children, and I wanted the same as everybody else. It was like we were conditioned. That's the sort of the birthday or Christmas present for that year that every child will want.
Yes.
Isn't it
Yeah.
funny?
Yeah.
That we
Yeah.
do have that need to conform, but it again can often take us away from shining as we truly are. And that's what the colors share with
Yeah.
us because they are a frequency, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the I am me, it's kind of a really about be owning yourself through knowing your color. Sometimes people, so it's I would say so. First of all, this book is in color because we're right, and it is just purely about the life path colors. So it's about, and also, sometimes you can tell them they're their color, and they go, "I'm not too keen about that color,"
Well,
and
there
as
was me, wasn't there? With yellow, it's like, couldn't it be purple?
But and then it's more about so it's going beyond that and reminding people no, it's not about wearing it, it's not about anything like it's not that. It's more about being it. So literally it's kind of being because every color has its own archetype. And archetypes are fantastic ways of explaining human behavior. So it's a sense of okay, you might not like yellow, but you can own the qualities of yellow, and the archetype of yellow, as we've talked about before, is the warrior. You
Yes,
know,
and then of course, when you think of yellow, you think of the sun and shining.
yes,
So, bing.
yes, exactly. Exactly. My biggest thing for yellow is never the sun never apologizes for shining too brightly, and neither should anyone on a yellow life path,
Yes.
which is sometimes the challenge because people want to dim the light.
Again, there comes in that conforming to societal expectations and, maybe playing small, so not to kind of cast a shadow on anybody else and not standing into who you truly are.
Exactly, yes. And so then the difference in this one is also we add keywords related to the color and then invite people to choose a word which they feel most resonates with them and then use it as a daily affirmation. Put I am before it.
Yes, they say the two most powerful words in the world are I am. What comes
Yes.
after it?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
it's a way of using it, kind of maybe you don't want to wear the color, decorate with the color, but if you can use the affirmation because, as you said, everything is energy and frequency, and so those words then almost like align you with your core essence, if you like. So it always brings you back into balance. I describe it as a bit like when you have a phone and if there's a problem, they always say, return to factory settings, reset the phone, return. And so your color and your affirmations do that on a daily basis. They reset you back to who you were born to be.
I love our conversations because it's almost like a reset for myself as well to sort of remind myself of that yellow archetype. And of course, and how it interacts with the color of the year
Mhm.
as well. Because, and maybe I should also say that apart from finding out your color archetype from your books. People can also get a quick glimpse of that from your website as well. They can quickly go online and discover how to do that. So it's not a long, drawn out process, and they'll get a snapshot. However, I can see that the books take them into much more depth of, in terms of the archetype, in terms of understanding more of who you are and less of who you're not.
Yes.
Now, I know when we spoke about earlier this year being the year of Rose, and then how Rose blended with different archetypes like yellow or green or whatever. And of course, 2025 is gold.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it's also, as I mentioned earlier, your personal year. So tell us more about gold and what that means in terms of the year. I'm seeing it glistening and sparkling.
Yep. So it's interesting because also along with so the color of the year is very simply using the number, taking the single digits. So 2025, 2 plus 2 plus 5 comes out as 9, which then comes out as gold. And it's looking at it both collectively. I kind of start to observe from about August, September onwards, and just watch what's happening in the world, observing, and just start to notice because it's almost like having a gentle breeze of the new year, of the color starting to come in. And the archetype related to gold is the sage. So there's a sense of wisdom.
Totally.
It's also the ninth color, so it's the end of a 9 year cycle. So it's looking and considering, so what's happened over the past 9 years? What can I, in a way, it's a year of ending because in a way, it's like saying, well, what have I learned over the last 9 years? And what can I let go of that I no longer need to take with me into the next 9 years? It's a it's a real slowing down color and really going within. And in a way, so like this year has been that rose year, which is the lover
Love.
archetype. And so on that sort of collective level, you might look and say, well, how has the 2024 been about love? It seems to have been, when we look at what's happening in the world, we might see its total opposite. But what it does is when we see these things happening in the world, it's that invitation to how can I be more loving? What can I do which connects us? So it's always an invitation to be more and bring out those qualities within ourselves collectively.
Plus, Mark, when there are atrocities in the world, actually it does open people's hearts
Mm-hmm.
in an outpouring of empathy and sympathy because it touches you in some way. Whereas we have been very numb, but when things are so shocking, it kind of like jolts you and sparks an awakening.
Yep. Yes. So in a way, because people have been asking me this, they said, but how can you say it's been about love? Because it's really, and I said, no, but it's more that exactly as you said, it's the waking up to how do I do this? How can I be more compassionate? And so like next year, it's the same thing. What is my wisdom? Because, and I don't know whether you agree with this, but what I see is so many people are trying to be anything but themselves. There's this, we look on social media, there's all these kind of various, like, be this, do this is the right way to be, this is how you should be. Whereas the wisdom of gold says, no, 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 own your wisdom. Don't give it away to anyone else. Yes, be inspired by other people, but don't let it, in a way, hide you away from your own wisdom.
I find that a lovely truth in that because, again, when we look at social media and everybody's focused on building followers rather than It's like, follow me, follow me. And it disappoints me actually when people are looking at getting followers, not just on social media, but in everything that they do, rather than empowering people to be that sage, that wise person within. And I feel what is missing a lot is discernment, because there is a lot of misinformation out there,
Yeah.
and then that gets, accelerated as people share. So I know from my own, when I go through things, it's very much that sits well with me. No, even though it may be someone or an organization that's thought of very highly, or a person that's thought of very highly, it's it's using your own wisdom and your own guidance and intuition to find the truth in it. Because, as I said, there is so much misinformation there, that I find that quite, I find that a little bit sad, that people are so looking for other people for the answers,
Mhm.
rather than trusting and being discerning themselves, and
Yes.
realizing that, hey, you really do have that sage within you.
Yes. And it's learning to trust your own wisdom. So, in a way, it's what you already know within. And
Yeah,
it's that,
and look, often that is easy to follow,
yeah.
and other times it's
Oh, yes.
not so easy to follow. And so we
Yeah.
want to almost prove it wrong. See, I did it anyway and I was fine.
Mhm.
And usually that's not the case.
And also, the essence of gold is about actually trying things, doing things, and learning by our mistakes and what we learn. Gold is about much more is about lived experience rather than just sort of I can know something in theory, but until I actually live it, it doesn't become wisdom. There's that phrase which is knowledge is knowing. What is it? Action is wisdom.
Yes, it all has to come together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. So, how do you feel that gold has guided your path, Mark?
Um, well, first of all, as I say in the introduction in the book, it's like when I first learned I was gold, um, X amount of years ago. Well, actually, no, actually, let me own the wisdom. Actually, really, this year or in 2025, it will be 38 years. So, and when I first learned I was gold, it was like, oh, this is nice. It helped me make sense of how I was, in a way, how I was feeling, what I was thinking. And yet at the same time, I was reading and I was saying, no, 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 no. When it was talking about this wisdom and this sense of kind of, healing, and it was like, nope, 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 nope. That belongs somewhere else. But gradually over the years, it's almost like I've growing into it. So it's not a forced thing. It's like I've learned and through experience and said, oh yeah. And I can't imagine being anything else. I've in some of the workshops we do, it says, well, let's try it to see how it would be if you were on another color, if you were a different color. And everyone always says, as soon as they come back to their color, it's almost like, no, this is like coming home. It's
Yes.
great to explore all the other colors. And I think that's what gold teaches us collectively. It's about home is where the wisdom is. And home on so many different levels. Doesn't have to be a physical place. It's within yourself.
And sometimes you don't know that until you've tried on something else.
Yeah.
And then you realize, no, this is home.
Yeah.
And so until you've had the opposite, you're not clear.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, next year for you, in 2025, it's gold on gold.
Yeah. Yay.
And with the Year of Rose, we also looked at how it blended with the other colors and the other archetypes.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be a good idea to go through how it
Yes.
blends with the other
Yeah.
colors, and what it sparks when it blends with the others.
Yeah. I would say actually out of so like with rose, it had its different influence on all the other colors, all the other eight colors. I would say the biggest thing is for gold is for all of the colors. It's almost like about what have you learned in the last 9 years, and whatever's unfinished will almost like come to revisit. Like as we're coming up to Christmas, kind of as the ghost of Christmas past. It's almost like everything that you've experienced that maybe you haven't completed will almost come to revisit. Maybe not with the same situation or the same people, but with the same energy to say, "There we go. Do you want to take this with you into the next 9 years? What am I going to let?" So it's almost like teaching all of the colors. Travel lightly. Don't travel with excess baggage. Because, like we do in the airport, if we travel with excess baggage, we have to pay for it.
Yeah, you're going to be charged, especially now.
Yes. Yes.
What about the sort of shiny sparkle quality of gold?
Hmm.
Because again, with gold, it reflects other colors and puts
Yeah.
its own tint and hue on it. So, for example, you can get rose gold.
Yes.
Um, and I'm just wondering how, if gold has a reflection of everything in it, in terms of maybe it shines back at you and accentuates the archetype of your color.
Yes. So, like, let's say it is exactly that. It reflects everything. So it is, whilst it can be perceived as a very, sometimes people say, oh, it's very soft, it's very gentle, but there's that fierce gentleness. That's an essence of gold. It will hold up that mirror to you full on and say, have you looked in the mirror recently? Not, kind of in that sense of what are you doing? So, with red, which is the pioneer or the rebel, is have you really lived up to that? Or have you really given your power away? And then with orange, which is the jester, which is a has an it because orange and gold have a similar kind of connection. There's qualities in orange that are also in gold. So again, the same thing. But with gold and orange, it will say, have you lived happily in these last 9 years? How much laughter have you brought in? And where do you need to bring more laughter?
Mm,
And then with,
interesting.
with yellow, because again, kind of gold has that orange yellow mix. So again, it's a different version to orange. In this is not about happiness, but have you literally done something about sharing your wisdom?
You know,
I think
it's funny on this one, because and you said that it's not a kind of like we reach the 31st and boof, it's, stop rose and
yeah,
go into gold. It's observing not just what's going on in the world, but what's going on with you. And I do feel, in terms of coming out of a particular cycle, and moving more into a new cycle. So this year I got my PhD, did the defense panel for my
congratulations, by the
thesis.
way.
Thank you. It's Dr. Carol now. And
Yes.
then I also then rewrote my thesis to be more user friendly as a book. So it's currently being published right now. It's signed off. And it's about reimagining you. And because also when you do a thesis and your PhD, it becomes your life's work.
Yes.
Or it should become your life's work, because again, with my thesis, bioregenesis of the human DNA blueprint through source feeding, again, getting people to reimagine nourishment in different ways, like this nourishing conversation we have. So what I've noticed in myself is speaking up a little bit more that I have an important message to share, and reaching out in a way to certain people or to certain events that I wouldn't of before. I've always been a little shy to ask or push myself out there, despite being the warrior. So there goes back to, are you living your archetype? And
Yeah,
it's been actually quite lovely to get the response has been very positive, considering I'm speaking about something quite provocative. So I find this yellow and gold combination, really, as you say, looking back over the last 9 years or 8 years, and then, gently nudging yourself into this new cycle. And because of the yellow gold, it's to me, shining even brighter.
absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. And it's exactly that, what you said about, your work being provocative in a way. That's about owning your wisdom.
Yes.
It's like I have something to say. This is my take. This is my view of the world. Let me share that with you. So it's in a way, gold helps us to actually find our tribes and where we feel recognized and allowed our space to speak our truth.
And that's also interesting in terms of a cycle, because again, based on clients and connections, sometimes that means letting go and being okay that certain people may disappear from your circle, or it may shrink, or it may expand in new ways, and being open to that.
Yep. Yes. It's learning that it's okay because the sage says okay, and the sage doesn't make a big song and dance about it. Kind of as we know, humans as ego, etc. We do, but the sage just sits very calmly and just says, "Let it be." I always think of the sage as like kind of one of these, like for me, and the thing I love about archetypes is because they're symbols, they can be anything to anyone, and neither one is wrong. It's what it means to me.
Yes.
And so when I think of a sage, is like, kind of like one of these monks, the Buddhist monks, who's just sitting in deep contemplation, but always fully connected, not disconnected, but fully connected.
Yes, it's not, out there, spaced out, zoned out, zonked out. It's totally present on all levels.
Yes. And it's a bit like, do you remember the film, the very first film, Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Gosh,
Um,
yes,
Yes, I know. Yeah, yeah, that's going back a little bit. I know. Um, and there's a scene. Okay, it's a fight scene. And let's say one of the baddies is sort of was doing all this sort of martial arts, and then the Indiana Jones just gets out the gun and just kind of like this is, it's that simplicity, wisdom in the simplicity.
yet laser focused.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. And so, in a way, that's where the sage says, I am enough. And if you can't see that, I'm not interested. Not in it's not putting you down. You know that term. Do you remember the book, I'm okay, you're okay?
Yes,
Way back, the transactional analysis book. The sage very much comes from that space. I'm okay, you're okay. If you want to walk away, I want to walk away. That's totally fine, but I'm okay and you're okay.
yes, yeah.
And
So
that's why I think that's why I think owning that wisdom is a challenge because a society as a rule says you are not okay. You need X, Y, Z to
you
make you
need
okay.
more, you need
Yes,
more.
yes,
And again, that's programming and conditioning
yeah,
and consumerism that,
yes,
to always aspire and want more and more and more.
yes. Whereas the sage says, am enough. I'm totally okay.
And it's surprising actually, this year and the last few years, how little we actually do need in order to
Mm.
be happy and to survive. And, I know when I talk about nourishment, nourishment, as I said, can come from a wonderful conversation. It can come from listening to music you love. It can be a walk on the beach. It can be a hike. It can just be in meditation by yourself, or, sitting and having a cup of tea in silence, or there's so many different ways that can be nourishing,
Yes.
that it makes you aware of how little we do need. And on the occasion when I do go to a shopping mall and it's just more stuff.
Oh, yes. Yes. It's almost that sense of like eventually consumerism will consume the consumer because
Well,
it
well,
comes
in
from
some
that
ways
place of
it
there's
does,
never
doesn't it?
enough.
Because so many people
Yes.
have to have storage units for all their stuff.
Yeah. Well, a few years ago, I put all my stuff into a storage unit, and literally there was me and one suitcase, and that was for 18 months for in order for me to know where I wanted to be. But the wisdom in that, which didn't feel like it at the time, but when the wisdom is always sometimes looking back and saying, what did I learn from the situation? What did it teach me? Because, kind of gold is about teaching and wisdom. And in the sense of, if you find you've got too much stuff, I would so recommend putting it all in a storage unit, leaving it for 18 months, because it was so easy to get rid of so much stuff because I'd lost the attachment to it after 18 months. It's like, oh, yeah. Whereas 18 months prior to that, I would, no, I can't get rid of that. No, I can't get rid of that.
Oh, I
But
have
it's,
a big trunk, so things go first into the trunk, and
yeah,
then it's like a storage unit. You don't miss it. And
yep,
I also think when maybe a family, a friend, or somebody makes their transition and
yeah,
passes over, and when my mother transitioned, it's a big wake-up call that you come in with nothing, you leave with nothing.
yeah,
And because I don't live in the UK, and my mother had been living in my house, I found it very easy. In fact, I know my brother was a little bit shocked to clear stuff because I had no attachment to it.
mhm,
And despite the fact that I'd also had that house for a long, long time and I put it on the market to sell, when it did sell, and I remember with a common friend of ours, with Maggie, being in the house and doing a little blessing ceremony. So I wanted, the next owners to love my little cottage, but it wasn't mine anymore.
yep,
And it was very easy, much easier than I thought, to let it go. I'd be probably a bit more attached to my home here in
mhm,
Dubai than I was to the one in England, despite the longevity of time I'd had it. The other thing I noticed was in clearing my house, when I went to my brother's home to start clearing my mother's stuff from there as well, um, that as quickly as I'd put things in bags to clear, I'd go back the next day to pick up the bags and they weren't there.
mhm.
Um, they'd kind of like found themselves back into the cupboard and things like that. And
Yeah,
so, I found that he was far more attached to things than I was. And I make it quite a regular thing to clear the clutter here. We're very lucky that we have some wonderful garage sales which raise money for the community cats, or for a charity, or for good cause. And so I love to be able to contribute to those
yeah,
causes. So it's a lovely reminder every month to, hey, I don't need that.
yeah. Yes. And I'm sure people listening will make. Let me carry on talking through the colours because we've got up to
Oh,
yellow.
yes, 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 yes. Yes, we got up to yellow.
Otherwise, they'll
We
be
got a
saying,
few more to go. We got green next.
yeah, yeah. Otherwise, they'll be saying, what about my colour? What about my colour? So, interestingly, that gold and green, because green literally is about letting, part of it is about living in harmony and balance. And sometimes the challenge for green is about letting go.
What's the archetype for green?
The gardener.
The gardener.
Yes. Yeah.
Lovely,
And
isn't
I
it?
always think, I notice when I'm going through the colors, so like you have the rebel, you have the jester, then you have the warrior, and then you say green, the gardener, and you almost like he sense this sort of sense of, oh, because you've got all these really kind of energetic. Then you get to green, you go the gardener, but the
Oh, I think
gardener,
it's lovely.
oh,
It's
absolutely.
growth, it's seeding,
Mhm.
it's
Yes.
possibilities, it's
Yeah.
potential.
Yeah. And I would say at this moment in time, the Western world, certainly the Western world, is so out of balance with the gardener because the gardener knows exactly the right time for the right thing. Whereas now we want everything immediately. Whereas the gardener knows when to plant, when to nourish, when to let go, when to cut things back. So gold reminds, in a way, green to take your time because there's a wisdom in taking your time and knowing the right time.
Funnily enough, on the gardener, I was just speaking to somebody yesterday who's in Portugal now. And part of one of the areas that they're developing is, understanding the medicinal garden.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
So there's so many different facets to being a gardener,
Yes.
from health to prosperity to materialization and manifestation, from the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Yeah, the gardener is beautiful, so much
Yes.
potential.
Yes. So it's a much kind of more, it's much more grounded. I mean, all the archetypes are grounded, but the one is the one kind of really just take your time, know the time. Um, and so, in a way, the sage says, do you know your time?
Yes, because when to plant,
Yep.
yeah, there is a right time, isn't there?
Yes. So I would say really for the next for 2025, it's really almost like a tap on our collective shoulders saying, are you being yourself? And so it's understanding and reconnecting with your own life path color archetype and how does this play out? Because it's the one of the things we say in the book is if you're born to be red, but you always think you're blue, you'll always feel there's something wrong with you. And you'll go in search of all these different things. It's like, well, why be that when you're born to be this? It's just be yourself. That's your wisdom. And knowing that we all come with a story and a wisdom to share with the world.
So
And
where are we next? Are we blue from
we
green?
are, yes, blue, which is about, kind of the storyteller,
Yes, weaving the stories.
weaving the stories. But have you finished? The gold says, the sage says, yes, that's fine. But are you telling the right story? And do you need to come to the end of a chapter?
Yes.
Is looking back at what stories are unfinished.
So where are we after blue?
The magician, indigo.
Oh, yes, I do love indigo as well.
Oh, me too. Me too. It's after, I would say indigo. If someone said, what is your favorite? It's indigo. I just love that. And yet it's the most misunderstood color.
It's
Anyway,
it's so deep, it's rich, it's regal.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the gold and the magician literally is, do you know your magic? And are you using it?
Yes.
Because in that sense of, you probably experienced this and I experienced this quite a lot and I have colleagues as well, of where maybe you do, like, people attend maybe a workshop or two or a few courses and suddenly they set themselves up as experts. That's denying your own wisdom. It doesn't serve anyone to do that because you, you're you've learned you're able to stand up on that stage, do your PhD because of your lived experience. I can come and listen to you, but I can never be you.
This is the difference between having a role model, or in NLP, we talk about having a model of excellence. And I
Mhm.
often remember in my early days of speaking, people say, "Oh, so if you're a motivational speaker, who do you aspire to be? Do you want to be like Tony Robbins? Do you want to be?" And it was like, no, I want to be a better version of myself.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you can't use other speakers as role models and learn from them.
Yeah.
However, you can never be them
Yes.
because you are not them.
Yeah.
And so I feel that's such an interesting point to have role models, aspire to be, have certain qualities like them, but again, find your own message and your own wisdom.
Yes. Yeah. And also part of the sage is feeling okay to say you are inspired by and who taught you. Where did you learn your wisdom from? Because wisdom comes from lived experience, and we learn, kind of, you've probably been inspired by other people and you may reference them and say it's the same thing. It's your own part of owning your wisdom. What's that phrase about, to be able to stand on the shoulders of giants?
Yes.
I can't do that if I don't honor the wisdom where I was inspired by.
Yes, but it doesn't mean I want to be them.
No,
And
no.
also you can never be them because you'd always do it in your own way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I think sometimes people see your wisdom and they want to take their wisdom. They want to take that wisdom because they're not owning their own wisdom.
So isn't that the gift of the teacher and
Yeah.
also the sage to allow you to reflect out to yourself and to others your own wisdom, your own intuition, that discernment? And isn't that also, as when you're younger, the discovery and learning of who you are?
Yeah.
So obviously, when we're younger, we maybe aspire to be like somebody else, but again, we cannot be them. It's you do it your way.
Yes. It's that, like Oscar Wilde said, be yourself because everyone else is taken.
Totally. Okay, so we've
No,
gone from blue to
violet,
indigo, violet. Oh,
violet, which is the sovereign.
and it is such a sovereign color.
Absolutely. And so when you put gold and violet as color combinations together,
Beautiful.
such incredible, so really when you put gold and violet together, so you put the sage and the sovereign, it's that wise leader.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But in that sense, it's the wise leader is also about integrity and legacy. Is what is my legacy? What am I, by being myself, what am I creating for the future?
And then we go into rose.
Yeah, gold and rose are great companions because you might say it's the wisdom of the heart.
Yes. And so many people have that dichotomy of, do I go head or heart? When it's like, well, it doesn't have to be. I see so many people in that dichotomy of either or, and it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be either or. It's a blend.
Yes, and it is that balance. Sometimes we're more one than the other, but we need both. I would always go heart, head.
Yes.
Yeah,
And rose, as I said, there's rose gold. So there's also a lovely blend between them as well. The
yeah,
wise heart.
yes, yeah. It's that sense of what is it again? And if you think of heart on so many different levels, but when it comes to, let's say, matters of the heart, how often do we hold on to stuff that's way past its sell by date?
Well, then it comes back to clearing the clutter again, doesn't
Yes,
it?
exactly.
That's not just clearing the physical clutter, it's the mental, the
Yeah,
emotional, and the spiritual clutter. And look,
yeah.
we can all look back and see that, our beautiful evolution of things that we used to believe and followed that path. And then it's like, that doesn't sit with me anymore. Here we go.
And it's that sense of when it comes to like matters of the heart, where the wisdom comes, is looking back. And instead of being, yes, we can look back and say, okay, if it's a relationship, is on any level, whether it's romantic relationship, friendships, whatever, is almost like, what did I learn from that? What's the wisdom? What's the takeaway? What's the wisdom? How did I grow because of this?
Yes, and sometimes we don't see that in the moment. It's
No.
the beautiful hindsight which gold gifts us with.
Yes.
We come to the close of a cycle to look back at that cycle, at those
Yeah.
9 years.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have gold on gold.
Gold on gold.
Which,
It's
which
a
again,
wonderful.
what comes to mind when I think
Yeah.
gold on gold is, you've got 12 karat gold, you've got 18 karat gold. Living in the Middle East, we've got the 22 karat gold. So the different tones and shades, because again, I remember first coming over here and the gold didn't look real.
Mhm.
It looked fake because it was so, so bright.
Oh, gold.
You've been to the gold souk here, so it's
Yeah.
gold, gold, gold. It really does glitter,
Yeah.
So what's gold on gold?
Well, as much as it is that, but it really, whenever we come, I would say, so whenever we come into a year, which is our color, it's more of an invitation to be more of that. So it's how can I be more wise? What is the wisdom? What is the teaching? Am I teaching enough? Teaching doesn't necessarily have to be about teaching. It can be just be the way I live my life. That becomes a living example. Gold is, I always describe gold as like the eldest child of the color spectrum of this nine of the nine colors. There's the challenge sometimes with gold is expectations of itself to be perfect. But my favorite phrase at the moment is the perfectly imperfect or the imperfectly perfect.
Oh, my favorite one around there is it's your imperfections that make you more interesting.
Yes, exactly. That's a
So,
challenge. That's a let's say that's a learning to live with that concept for gold.
now we've talked about, all the archetypes and
Yeah.
being embodying more of who you really are.
Hmm.
However, there's, secondary colors and
Yeah.
there's the ones that we resonate with. And I know
Of
you
course.
said, hey, when people try on another color, and it's like, oh, no, that's not like me. However, it can often reflect back parts of yourself that you've rejected.
Hmm.
So there are secondary colors to, consider. There's spectrums. It's not, this is it. This is you. There's, it's a little bit like, I guess, like astrology. It's not, you're not just your sun sign. There's the,
Moon sign
what
and
yes, and
yeah,
what house it's in, and the
yeah,
planets,
exactly.
and how they interact with each other,
Yes.
and the angles. There's different layers, there's different tones, there's different qualities to also start embracing as well. And that's the lovely thing of looking at the theme of the year and then seeing how it blends and merges with maybe your primary color.
Yes, and also it's exactly we're made up of a mix of all of these nine archetypes. We're never the life path color is the absolute main one. I describe it as a bit like your life path color is the land upon which you stand. That's your solid base, and then we all come with a color code which is a mix and a blend of all the other archetypes. And that I describe as the house which we build upon the land.
Yes.
And that's so we always come back to our homeland, which is my life path color. And then the house we build, and it's constantly evolving, changing. but equally, I always know who I am, which is, in a way, which is so Amanda, kind of came up with the concept of the I am me. But what was interesting is, how it is one thing leads on to another. And we realized that the book is only a small book. It's like 70 something pages. So, because we realized that people just don't have the time to read.
Exactly.
And
And often in books like that, they're going to immediately go to their own color.
yes, yeah. But what it did for me is it opened a doorway to make me realize that actually, no, the I Am Me is a series of 3 books. So again, which is to me why it was so important to put Amanda on the cover to really honor her, let's say, in vision. And because the second book, which is connected to the house, is called The Colour House.
And the third?
That's about the more about the archetypes. That's kind of like what's in a name, because we turn the name into color. But the second one, which I'm working on at the moment, is called The Colour House, Coming Home to Myself.
Yes.
So
Easier
it's
said than done
yes,
sometimes.
absolutely. So every book is a sort of continuation on the journey. So then you can either read 1, 2, or 3, but then you have the whole process of coming home to myself and living with I am me. It's that
Love
sense
it.
of
Yes.
boldly being able to stand up there and say, I am me, and that is enough.
So I'm taking it as we finish off today, I'm taking it that this book, I Am Me, is available on all the major platforms, on
Yes.
Amazon, and also available the links on your website.
Yes. No, on the website is not there yet. It will be in the next in the coming days. Yes, but actually, yeah, on all major wherever you buy your books and in bookstores as well.
Wonderful. And your website again, just remind us so people can quickly discover their own life color.
Yep. Oh, well, it's colorforlife.com. Or if you get confused whether it's color COLOR or COLOUR, you can also search markwentworth.me, because that will take you to the same site.
Okay, great. And so once again, I thank you for such an enlightening conversation and encouraging people to really step onto their sort of I am me color and be more
Yes.
of who they are and less
Yes.
of who they're not. So
Yes.
thank you so much again, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode with my guest, Mark Wentworth, and I highly recommend you go to his website, colourforlife.com, and discover more about your colour and its dynamics in your life, or purchase his latest book, I Am Me. I'm thrilled to be sharing possibilities with you, and if you want more, then check out the link at thepossibilityhub.com. And if you feel that others can benefit from listening in, then please share, review, like, or follow me on Instagram, Carol K. Talbot, or check my YouTube channel. Remember, you're always more than you think you are.